Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insight, Father-Son series with Paul Goldin, the son, and Ken Goldin, the dad. We also talk about Paul Goldin, the father of Ken that I knew that had an untimely heart attack 30 years ago now, but he was also an icon in the industry. And I enjoyed the time with Ken. I've known him since he was young. He's not a young kid anymore, but he's doing a great job. He's promoting himself, but along the way, he's really promoting the hobby. That's to his credit. So you can tune into his various stuff, his TV show. He's very proud of that, and deservedly so. And I got a chance to meet Paul Goldin, the 10-year-old namesake of Ken's dad. That was a treat as well. Thank you, sponsors: Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. Thank you, everybody, and here it is. It's a great father-son hobby. Paul, I knew your grandfather back when he was a real force in the industry. I'm not sure he taught Ken everything Ken knows or vice versa, but they were quite the force in the late 80s and early 90s. Before your time, but a great legacy and a name that you carry on. When y'all got started, y'all were really a team.
Yep, 100%.
Team. And I think he learned from you just like you learned from him. You got a lot of energy. So are you doing the same thing with young Paul?
The funny thing is I started collecting as a kid. Then I made some finds. I set up the little mail order business. When I was doing mail order, I was 13. I left them the packages and he took them to his office and he shipped them. I would put an ad in the South Jersey Courier Post. And he would drive me around to people's houses. By the time I was 15, he said, next year you're going to be getting your license. I've been watching you do this long enough. He goes, I want you to know you've got a partner. And it's me. Because like everything, it was always me. So like I borrowed money from him. And then when I didn't have to borrow money anymore, I just used my own money that I was funding the business. He goes, but I'm your partner. He goes, I'm not driving you around anymore. I'm driving us around. So then we did it together and we set up at card shows and we would put in bigger ads. The funny thing, we actually had two separate ads. We had a Ken Goldin ad and there'd be a Paul Goldin ad. And he was really not a collector. He was in it like as a business, but me, I was a collector. So I saved one of every single thing, no matter what it was. I had to keep one of each. But he would just buy it and then he'd, go through it and figure out, and then he'd sell them. So that's what we did. What was interesting was I went off to school and I stopped, like when I was 18 and 19, I stopped for 2 years and he didn't. He was just doing it more. And then that's when he had the idea with all these card shops opening up in the mid 1980s, when 80, 85, 86, when he said, hey, I bet there could be a real business here. The thought was to service all these card shops across the country. And because I bet I can raise money. My quote to him was, if you can raise the money for it, I will run it for you. It's surprising to me, he raised the money and started Scoreboard.
So it was his idea to go public.
Yeah, it was
way ahead of its time and a great learning experience for you. But I was wondering how long you guys were self-funding your business, because you were doing pretty well up to that point, but that took you to another level.
We both did our own thing up until really 1986. Then he actually incorporated Scoreboard in January 1986. I guess he put some money into it and it was operating slowly with his money and then maybe a little bit of seed money. When I say a little bit, like maybe 50 grand. Okay. But then he got people to do the IPO and it was a penny stock. It was like 3.5 cents a share. And our proceeds, we netted $2 million. You hear my first Cy Burger story? As you remember, back in 1987, Topps did not sell hobby shops, right? They didn't do it. So we're now public. We go in there and it's 1987 and I put on a suit. My dad put on a suit, which is normal for him, not normal for me. 1987, I was 21 and we go in there and we meet Cy Burger and we bought 2,000 vending cases of 1987 Topps. How's it work? You pay me and then we're ready. We will ship you. So he hands over a check for $500,000 and 2 months later, we got these trucks backing up to the office. And I was telling Cy looks like happy getting $500,000 check for Topps back in 1987, except for Walmart. He probably didn't get checks like that back in the day. But it was then all of a sudden, oh, wow, these people are for real. The Goldins are for real. And then we became a good Topps customer with the direct account.
Paul, what do you like about the hobby, about collecting cards, what your dad does and all that stuff? What's your favorite thing?
I like opening packs the most. That's probably because it's fun seeing what I get in them.
Do you like the more expensive packs, the better?
I like the boxes where I know I'm getting one or more like autographs I'm not 100% know that because I don't really like the boxes where like a chance to get an autograph. I feel like there's no chance for a good card. I want to make sure I get a good card in the box.
So do you read the box carefully, or does your dad provide it for you? Do you say, hey, I want this box because it's promising 2 autographs per box?
I don't really buy the boxes, but the ones that I prefer to like open, I normally read them and make sure like they're good. Like I never really thought about it that way.
What do you do with the cards you don't like?
I don't know where he looks them up.
Yeah, the good cards we set aside, we put in holders, and some of them, PSA does have a Paul's Pull label.
Wait, Paul's got his own label?
Here you go, Paul. Remember this? This is the live break that Steph Curry joins. He popped in during COVID. Show him the card.
Well, that's amazing.
That's a PSA 9. That's a Kobe Finest Refractor rookie. And we pulled that in a live break. The way it started with him in 2020, when school was locked out, he had to be homeschooled. Laura was living with us. So she was doing math with him and whatnot. And I said, every day you do your stuff, I'll get you a box of cards. Funny thing was, what did I show you earlier today? Old clips of you break. So Paul set up a camera when he was 6 in the basement in front of an ESPN sign, pretending he was on SportsCenter. So he would open up packs, read off everybody, talk about the stats, and then he would talk about their contract, whether they had a good contract or not. So he started doing that. And I was not even on Instagram. Laura had set me up an account like in 2. I never used it. So I said, we're stuck home. Everyone's stuck home. So one day I went live with Paul and we just were opening. It was always only baseball or basketball, never anything else. He started opening up the packs and people loved hearing this 6-year-old kid talk about who's good, who's not good, what the value of the contract was. A couple of players who I happen to know, he said they had bad contracts. The team was overpaying them. And we were getting like 1,000 people watching. And I only have 3,000 viewers. And my viewership going up and up because we did it for 80 days straight. So for 80 days, and I had to call all my friends. I was ordering from Blowout. I was ordering from my friend Matt Bayer. If they holding, I need some boxes. But we were opening anything we can get. Of course, the prices were going crazy back then. So people were probably happy I was spending money. But yeah, for about 3 months in a row, we opened up a box live on Instagram. To this day, whenever I go to shows, people say, is Paul going to be here? They want to meet Paul because they knew him from that.
Okay, so I thought your big breakout, Ken, was due to Paul Goldin. I was right, but it was the other Paul Goldin, this Paul Goldin, that brought you into the 21st century, perhaps. Your dad was an icon, but maybe you got a new icon developing here. What do you think, Paul?
I think that it was fun, but I started at around 6. Well, I'm surprised how far that came on.
Do you like to watch other people breaking, or do you just like to do it yourself?
I just like doing it myself.
Yeah, he's not into watching other people. He wants to do it himself.
Paul, what have you learned from your dad, or what have you taught your dad about this?
I learned not to slam the cards on the ground. I also learned like to take care of the cards. It's a good one I can use, like put them in sleeves. I also taught him how to speak.
The what?
I also taught him to be more energetic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Ken needs to be told to be more energetic?
Yeah, because sometimes
Oh.
to hear more things. And when I was open, he would pay attention, which is unusual for him.
Wow. We've got some generational pushback here, not just...
Yeah, what about what do you have to say about players when you're on there?
Now I know what to say. A few things I've said about were interesting. I'll just say now. And I said about contracts and stuff.
A lot of professional athletes follow me on Instagram. And Paul, when pulling cards, either could be disappointed in pulling some of their cards and voice it, yes, or could say, oh, he's got a horrible contract. Oh, the team wasted the money on them. And in a couple of those occasions, those athletes on Instagram actually clipped it and said, this is Ken Goldin's son. And they showed the clip of him saying he's getting me too much money.
Maybe they used it for motivation.
Yes. Okay.
What Diane says, because she didn't really know my grandfather, but she's heard about my father, and my dad just passed away last year. But she says, you must be a lot like your dad, but a little bit like your grandfather, too. I'm wondering if young Paul is, too, because he's your son, but maybe got a little bit of his grandfather's influence, too.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to my dad. The joke is, about people who they want to say they're not smart. He's no rocket scientist. I say to people, my dad actually was a rocket scientist. That's it. And what he had in common with you, of course, he taught statistics at Drexel. But he MIT grad and was in charge of a missile plant for RCA.
He was obviously a sharp guy. I didn't have that many interactions with him, but it's pretty clear that he was really smart. And I don't know that he was a futurist, but he certainly was able to see an opportunity and seize it. And you've carried that on too. There have been some opportunities that other people didn't see, and you went for it with gusto.
Thank you.
Been rewarded for that because the future goes to the bold sometimes.
A lot of people, especially with Netflix, they ask how I got started. And I always try and explain. So listen, you got to remember, there's no internet, there's no cell phones. And I said, there's no price tag back then. I said, because I started like in 77, 78. I said, finally, Becky came out with the price guide and some people were able to go to the store and we all figured out what everything was worth. But back then I was making offers and I was just taking guesses and people thought it was great and nobody knew.
I knew.
Yeah.
Most people didn't know. It leveled the playing field and it really allowed the industry to really grow with confidence that
100%.
there were some good price there. But my question to you is, because like my dad really stayed really sharp as much as he could toward the end and active.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad, untimely death.
Mm-hmm.
He have retired, and can you retire? There's not a lot of retirement in my family. I'm wondering if there's retirement in your family, because I think your dad would have kept going because he was super.
Yeah, my dad literally, I was with him on a Friday night and we were at QVC together watching the numbers from a show. Then he played tennis on a very hot day the next day and he had untreated high blood pressure and that was it. He had a massive heart attack afterwards. He was 62. He was definitely working. That's part of the reason why I've seen a cardiologist since I was 30. That's why I blood test twice a year. I make sure I exercise, do cardio 5 days a week, and I do everything I need to, especially with a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. Because I definitely plan on being around a very long time, especially now because eBay's listening or not. There will be a complete retirement. I don't know, but there's certainly be a time where I will not go to the office, not worry about managed people, and just really hoping that Goldin is a very long-lasting brand that runs 20, 30 years, hundreds of years in the future. I'll be available for whatever I'm needed for, but preferably at some point in time, I won't deal with the stress aspects. I like finding cool stuff. I like going to card shows. Some people say to me, do you get annoyed? I was at the National this year and people who always do deals with me, so they couldn't do a deal with me this year, didn't even want to come over to the booth because whenever I was in the booth, there was a massive line. I was talking to everybody, taking pictures with everybody. The difference is I actually enjoy that. I think these are people, some of them know me from the hobby, some of them know me from Instagram, but a lot of people know me because of the show. So I don't want their first impression of the hobby is to meet the king from Ken Collectibles, and I'm a jerk. So I talk to everybody. I ask everybody what they're buying, what they're looking for, because I want to give a good impression for the hobby. I want them to feel welcome. And I enjoy it. 20 years from now, I can see myself doing that.
Most people can't relate, but there's an imbalance at some point in the hobby where more people know you than you know. It's just awkward. They think they know you and you think, am I supposed to know you? And you've never even met them, but they'll act you're longtime friends because they've watched you or they've heard. So awkward, but nobody retires, Ken, from the stuff they love doing. They just want to retire from the stuff they don't enjoy doing. I know you've got good employees, key leaders that you can hand off to. Stuff that you don't like to do as much. And I did that. I was not able to be a CEO party owner, let's say. Can you split those up? Can you be the owner without being the person in charge? Or can you be the person in charge without having a majority ownership stake? Because I couldn't really split those up. I had to either do both or neither.
Oh, I definitely can. Everyone's going to know their capabilities, right? I am an entrepreneur. Okay. So there are a lot of people who are educated smart, who have master's degrees, doctorate degrees. Literally, this hobby is the only way I've ever earned money. I do everything by instinct. I'm always set all these prep things for interviews. I never read them. We have like big board of directors meetings when I was with collectors, and you got Steve Cohen in there, Dan Sunheim, and they got all these notes. I never look at them. And the reason is I figure I'm talking about my business. I'm talking about what I know. I understand what's going on. I understand my company, but I do not use a lot of technology. I just have a feel for it, kind of like an old time baseball scout, like the movie with Clint Eastwood. He would close his eyes and hear how fast the ball is coming to the glove and tell you what pitch you threw and how fast. I also know my limitations. So am I a quote unquote CEO? Yes, I'm a CEO, but am I overseeing 250 people and dealing with warehouse operations, building a marketplace and all these other sites? No, that's not not me. I made the decision in December 2020 to give up majority ownership when I sold a portion to Chernin Group. And of course, we merged in with Collectors, and I had a much smaller piece of a much larger company. So I've done it as long as I am working with people who understand my strengths, especially what not to expect of me, and appreciate that Ken really is a one-of-a-kind individual in this hobby that is, for what I do from top to bottom, virtually irreplaceable to get everything I do and everything I bring. And as long as they understand and respect that and let me do my thing, I'm fine running a business without being a majority owner.